Hello Bobcats. Alright, so today we're going to talk about displaying data using dot plots. And specifically how to use a dot plot and describe a dot plot. Alright, so let's get started. So, a dot plot, sometimes called a line plot, is a visual way to organize the data by showing the frequency of a data. A dot plot is simply a number line labeled from the least value to the greatest value in the data set. Each dot represents one piece of data. So for example here, runs scored. Okay, so one person ran 0. This would be a 1, a 3. It's always important to fill in your number lines. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So 3 people scored 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 people ran 2, and so on and so forth. Okay, so each dot represents 1. Now let's describe the shape distribution of the data using a line plot. So do we see any clusters here? Well, yeah. Clusters is data that's grouped together. So I see clusters. We see clusters here from 0 all the way to 7. Okay, all this area right here. This is one big cluster. So yes, I see clusters. I see them from 0 all the way to 7. Okay, now, do we have any gaps? Well, yeah. We have gaps here from 8 through 10. There's nothing. So, I do see gaps, and my gaps fall between 8 and 10 runs. Peaks. Remember, guys, peaks is your mode. And mode reminds me of most. So, most people ran 2 laps or scored 2 times. Okay, let's look at the shape. I'm going to erase this so that we can better see the graph. I kind of wrote all over it. Okay. Let's look at the shape. Is the shape symmetrical or is it skewed? Well, remember, we outline our graph and we look at the tail. What way is the tail going? Well, it's going to the right. So this is skewed to the right. It's skewed right. Okay? If it was symmetrical, then everything would be even, or it would be... But since neither the left or the right look identical, it is not symmetrical. It's skewed to the right. Remember, skewed to the right because the tail's going towards the right. And now the variability. So remember, the variability depends on what you're talking about. It depends on the subject matter. So in this case, we're talking about runs scored. So I can think about maybe a baseball game or a softball game, and each run is like a home run. So if we think about it, usually baseball games, they score between 5 or 7. Very rarely do you see a team that scores 11. It happens, but not as often. So in this case, I would say that there is a lot of variability going from 0 all the way to 11 because we're talking about a possible softball game or a possible baseball game. So because of those 2 reasons, I'm going to say that yes, there's variability from 0 to 11. Okay, let's practice with one more dot plot. Okay, here. The dot plot shows the prices of cowboy hats. Remember, each dot represents one person or one hat that costs that amount. So in this case, I see 2 hats that are $30, 3 hats that are $35, 3 hats that are $40, 3 hats that are 45, 4 hats that are 50, and 1 very expensive hat that is $75. Okay, so let's work with letter A. Find the median, mode, and range of the data. Okay, well we've done that before. We can easily find that. Let's start with the mode. Remember mode, think of most, and my most number, or my most used, would be 50. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the one that I have the most of. So my mode is 50. $50 is my mode. Range. Remember, range is going to be subtracting the largest from the least. So 75 minus 30 equals 45. So my range is $45. And now let's find the median. Okay, so I could do this 2 different ways. I can either write each number. So I can do 30, 30, because I have 2 30s, and then I can write 3 35s. So 35, 35, 35, and then 3 40s, 40, 40, 40. Okay, this is going to take me a long time because I have a lot of numbers. Or I can just count the total number of dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And I have 16. Remember, the median would be the middle. So I'm trying to find the middle number. So if I divide 16 divided by 2, that gives me 8. So on the lower half, I'm going to circle 8, and then on the upper half, I'm going to circle 8, and then try to see where the middle number is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is my lower half. Let me change color. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this would be my upper half. Okay, so I don't have a middle dot. So what that means is I am going to have to find it. So it falls between 40 and 45 because I have nothing here. So now I need to find the average of 40 and 45. So 40 plus 45, well, that gives me 85. And then 85 divided by 2, well, that gives me 42.5. So my median would be 42.5. Okay. B, are there any outliers? Well, yes, there's outliers. It would be this one, 75. It's very far away from the big cluster that we have over here. So yes, my outlier is 75. What would describe the center better? Center, the mean or the median? Well, think about it. Mean means average, and the median would be the middle. So median would be the best to describe the center of the graph. D, describe the shape of the data. Well, again, I can outline my graph and clearly see that my tail falls to the right, so this would be skewed right. And what percentage of the cowboy hats were $30? Okay, now we're talking about percents. So percents. Remember that word percents? We did this at the beginning of the year. Percent is out of what? Well, yeah, it's out of 100. Okay, so I'm gonna take my $30 and I'm gonna create a proportion. My percent is gonna be on this side, and I'm looking for this, for what percent. Remember, part to whole or part to total. So I have a total of 16 hats. We already counted all the dots. We have 16 hats. Okay, and then how many of them are 30? Well, 2. 2 of them are 30. So I have 2 16ths. Okay, I can simplify this. If I divide this by 2, I get 1/8. Now some of you might know your percentage already because of the fraction 1/8. But if we don't, we would have to multiply. Now 8 times what gives me 100? Well, nothing. But 8 times what gives me 1,000? Remember that special scale factor that we used, 125. So 8 times 125 gives me 1,000, and what I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. So 1 times 125 gives me 125. So now I have 125 thousandths. I'm going to work up here. Oh, yeah, right here. 125 thousandths. Okay, well now I do my Dr. Pepper. I'm going from my decimal to a percent because I'm looking for percent. I move it twice, so I go 1, 2, and my percent is 12.5%. Alright guys, now I want you to complete the next activity. And if you have any questions, make sure you either email your teacher or wait for our conference time. Thank you guys.